Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Extraterrestrials, Greys, Grey Alien. Contact Report 037.
For quite some time so far unknown to us, intelligences have been visiting the Earth. It was not until 1961 that we became aware of them, when they seized 2 Earth humans for study purposes, brought them into their spaceship, and subjected them to a physical-chemical analysis. Our examinations in the year 1961 revealed that there was nothing to fear from these space-traveling intelligences. They are humanoid in form, and in fact only did research. Their forms are absolutely human, though their body dimensions are somewhat different from ours. Their size varies between 126 and 163 cm. They originate from the planetary and star system Zeta Reticuli, as I already explained to you. This system is located at an average distance of 37 light-years from the Earth. Their spacecrafts are similar to our beam ships and are extremely well-equipped and very suitable for space travel. The atmosphere of their homeworld is very similar to the earthly atmosphere, so that they can breathe it without great difficulties. However, they are provided with close-fitting filter suits, which offer them protection in a number of respects. To the human beings of Earth, I would say that they are similar to the suits given to the fantasy figures Batman and Superman in the comics, except that in this case, the face and the whole head are completely wrapped in the suit, whereby the area around the eyes is secured by viewing and protective glasses built into and integrated into the suit. No doubt you are familiar with the fantasy films of French production about a criminal named Fantomas. If you look at this fantasy figure and replace its eye area with dark protective lenses, you have a pretty good representation of the Zeta Reticuli intelligences in their suits. Of course, they differ from us only in their anatomy as well as in their size and skin color.
Contact Report 039.
But now, I have a question for you. What actually happened with the 2 drawings that you promised me regarding the Zeta Reticuli intelligences?
Unfortunately, I could not make these for you. The permission for it was not granted to me. In order to be able to make the pictures correctly, I would have had to draw certain details, from which insights for the earthly scientists would have arisen, which they are not yet permitted to obtain.
Contact Report 238.
I have one more question about things I have been asked over and over again, like the little grays in America. As crazy Americans claim and stir up an immense propaganda for it, the American government should maintain contacts to these little grays, and even allow them to carry out inhuman experiments on terrestrial humans, in addition to gruesome animal experiments, etc. There should even be an exchange program between these little grays and the Americans should profit from the technology of the little twits, from which I have not yet discovered an iota. Also, an alleged former secret agent of the CIA with the pseudonym Falcon should play a certain role, as well as the constellation Reticuli, or what that should be called.
I have told you several times before that this whole puffed-up story and all the trimmings are nothing more than a crazy and deceptive fantasy of power-hungry elements that make many kinds of profit out of it, even including government agencies and intelligence services. Similarly, or even remotely similar, or on the same scale, are countless other identical or similar stories and allegations concerning alleged contact with humans or other beings from foreign worlds. Whereby, I would like to point out another time that at the present time, you are the only human being on Earth who has actual contact with extraterrestrial life forms, both in telepathic and physical form. All other claims made by any human being on Earth in this regard are either pure invention, hallucinogenic, insane, delusional, conscious or pathologically fraudulent, fanatically religious or otherwise unreal.
You have explained this so often, but the lunatics and the skeptics on the Earth simply do not allow themselves to be taught.
The innumerable liars, swindlers and deceivers, and the pseudoscientists in matters of ufology, alleged contacts, channeling, etc., and the believers of these gloomy and slanderous and misleading machinations, however, are all recognized and denounced, no matter whether it is about the falsehoods of the alleged Falcon of the American Secret Service, or about other lying stories and machinations of little grays and other nonsense.
Contact Report 246.
On a private basis, fraud, lies, charlatanry, and fraud have been practiced in these matters for a long time, which, according to your statements, should increase in the future. Unfortunately, this also discredits and ridicules the real UFO observations, if we want to stick to this name. But there are other UFO observations, namely those that fall within the scope of official and military secrets. This also involves various events of the past and present, about which a great deal has been written, claimed, talked about, and kept secret in the private sphere of so-called UFO research. Stories about crashes and salvages of UFOs also appear. For example, the case of New Mexico towards the end of the 1940s, etc. But also names like Falcon and Condor, etc. play an important role, whereby it should concern CIA members, etc., who should pass on UFO information to the public under these pseudonyms, of course without letting their face become recognizable. Also, the so-called little grays play a very important role, which allegedly in the USA about 3 million people are said to have insisted, impregnated, and maltreated with operation scars and painting, etc.
Which of course is sheer nonsense and has no reality at all. We are well aware of the hysteria of such delusions in America. This is already spreading to Europe, with a particularly fertile soil to be found especially in Germany. On the other hand, the delusion and the hysteria are still consciously stirred up from different places, whereby also this Falcon appears, whose false information is taken by all stupid believers gladly as cash coin. Certain official bodies, offices, and organizations also deliberately allow such false information to be disseminated, whereby the reasons for this are very varied. I am not yet allowed to speak openly about this, nor about which things correspond to the truth or untruth in matters of UFO crashes and UFO salvages, as well as other related matters. Also, with regard to the clarification of earthly offices and military and defensive forces in matters of UFOs, my duty of secrecy, which is apparent from one of our directives, is that we must not interfere in any matters of human life with which we are not in official contact. So we must also keep in mind that we must not decipher secrets that are kept by earthly authorities, government officials, security organizations, the military, etc., which secrets Earth authorities and military as well as security organizations guard, etc., regarding interests of allegedly extraterrestrial aircraft and humans, etc., must remain according to our directive instructions their secrets, which we do not have the right to air.
Then a question about the hills in the USA, which had been abducted by life forms of extraterrestrial origin, namely by human beings from the area of the stars Zeta Reticuli, 37 light-years away. I believe that you told me at the time that this was correct.
Yes. This forced contact is also the origin of the nonsensical stories and hysteria about the little grays, which have nothing to do with the truth in any way. The fear and hysteria and the imaginative stories about the little grays correspond to a well-managed false propaganda to put certain things in a false light on the one hand and to conceal certain events and machinations on the other.
What is certain is that there are inhabited planets in the area of Zeta Reticuli, planets inhabited by humans. Does this apply to both Zeta Reticuli 1 and Zeta Reticuli 2?
This is true, but we do not maintain any contacts with the local inhabitants, who are not even aware of our existence, which we have been observing for several millennia. However, our interests do not lie in establishing contact with the ways of life of those areas, since they do not yet possess certain forms of development that would be necessary for establishing contact.
Probably in reference to your directives?
That's right.
Well, then we can talk about something else again. My question refers once more to alleged contacts of human beings of Earth with extraterrestrials, whereby the specific is directed at claims which in my opinion sound quite ridiculous. Apart from the approximately 3 million human beings who were in America allegedly harmed by extraterrestrials and subjected to all kinds of tests, whereby many women supposedly developed pregnancies and the little Greys allegedly then stole the hybrid children after the birth, the kidnapped and harmed human beings of Earth would after the tests have often suffered from pain and complained about operation scars and burn marks, etc. In addition, however, cows and cattle are also said to have been outrageously massacred by the little Greys, and namely also by the thousands and millions, whereby the beasts were allegedly also missing various organs, and at the same time mysterious things are said to have occurred too.
This, of course, does not correspond to the truth, but to an unbelievable nonsense, which fanatical or otherwise incapable UFO and ghost believers only too gladly want to recognize as real truth and believe in it rock solidly, although not a word of the whole dizziness corresponds to the truth, which is well consciously invented and controlled by certain organs for deception and scaremongering in order to achieve certain goals. In addition to these organs and persons, however, there are still many UFO fantasts, who are mostly secternically burdened, who themselves care for their bodies by teaching themselves wounds and burns, etc., by implanting crystals or pieces of metal into their flesh and letting everything scar in order to then claim that they have been kidnapped and persecuted by extraterrestrials, of which the scars and burns, etc., would testify. Incompetent hypnotists, who then subject such persons to so-called truth hypnoses, then claim that the information given in hypnosis by the hypnotized would unfailingly correspond to the truth because hypnosis could not lie. However, it is never taken into account that a person in a hypnotic state can tell and pronounce the worst lies just as untraceably as is the case with the so-called technical lie detectors, without the specialists being able to recognize the lies because the technical devices of this kind on Earth are still so imperfect that they can be outwitted with simple and man's own means. With regard to the allegedly massacred animals, it must be said that this is just as much unbelievable nonsense as the alleged pregnancies in American women caused by the little Greys. The massacred animals are also purely Earth-human machinations for the purpose of scaremongering and misleading all those who are incompetent in the matter of UFO matters, spirits and extraterrestrials, and simply believe all nonsense unthinkingly if they are extraterrestrials and their flying machines or ghosts or religious appearances and other imaginations, etc. In some cases, however, no terrestrial humans are involved in such events, but predators who tear and mutilate the cattle.